This is The Guide Gals, a modern, wedding-focused podcast by the experts at Here Comes the Guide. I'm Chelsea, a designer and inspired creative who's probably racked up over 9,000 hours on Pinterest, and the friend who's going to shoot it to you straight.
And I'm Caroline, a social media manager who is obsessed with dogs as ring bearers and will inevitably cry over your wedding video. We've seen it from all sides. We've been brides, planners, bridesmaids, and have worked with standout brands throughout the industry.
Think of us as an extension of your wedding party and hang out with us as we share the ins, outs, ups, and downs of the road to I Do. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Guide Gals podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about navigating wedding planning from a parent's perspective and all of the different family dynamics that kind of come along with that. Today, we're really excited that we're joined by Lisa Shields. She is the COO at Here Comes the Guide. So we're really excited that she's here to talk about her experience with all this stuff.
Welcome, Lisa. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, I am so excited to be on the Guide Gals today. Super pumped.
Yes, actually, if you guys have listened to some of our episodes before, Lisa is no stranger to the Guide Gals and has given us some amazing pro tips, but it's exciting to have you on in an even fuller capacity. So before we jump into anything any further, we want to know some more about you. So tell us a little bit about who you are as Lisa Shields.
Yeah, awesome. So I am obviously the COO of Here Comes the Guide. I'm also a mom of 3 kids. I've got a 24-year-old, a 25-year-old, and a almost 21-year-old. My 25-year-old was adopted from the Ukraine as a 16-year-old, so he's the oldest, but that's why they're so close in age. I feel like I got to caveat that. Otherwise, people are like, you're crazy. Like, how did that happen? Yeah, I just adore being their mom. They're all adults now, so I guess I'm an official empty nester as well. And I love to play tennis, and I am in my painting era, so I'm getting into painting, and I just love all the people in my life.
Yay. And I feel like that is so evident with how you played a big role really in Kendall's wedding, right? There's a lot going on there. So I guess also tell us a little bit about Kendall's wedding.
Yes. So Kendall is my 24-year-old daughter. She married her high school sweetheart. So they were dating for about 6 years. When they got married, they got engaged about 4.5 years into dating, and we just adored him from the very beginning. So I was always hoping they would work out, and when they actually got engaged, I was super pumped because we just adore him. So we went into the planning phase. She was a senior in college when she was planning her wedding, so I was really highly involved. She was also out of state, and the wedding was in Texas. So I was able to do a lot, and we just had a really good time. We had Google spreadsheets galore. We would make notes. We would make suggestions. We would create links, and we just had the best time planning the wedding. The wedding ended up taking place outside of Austin at a venue that is on a lake outside of Austin, and it's a lake that we went to every year while she was growing up. And in fact, her now husband used to come along with us when they were dating, and so they talked a lot about potentially getting married at this venue. So when they got engaged, we definitely looked a few places, but we all really kind of knew where they would end up getting married. And we did a little destination wedding in terms of we had a bunch of family. This venue is on a property with a ton of cabins, so we had a bunch of family in. We did a few days worth of activities, and really it was a big family reunion, a lot of time with friends, and then kind of topped off by the wedding itself. It was super fun.
Yeah. Chelsea and I have actually been to the venue that Lisa's talking about, and yeah, it's incredible. It's like the perfect place for an event like that. But before we jump into more things, because you've already talked about some of the things that we're going to dive deeper into, and we're really excited to talk about that. But a question that we have to talk about every episode is, what is everybody drinking today?
Okay, I'll go first. It is no surprise to these two that I am drinking a large Diet Coke. It is my go-to drink of choice. And I will admit, embarrassingly, that I'm on my second large Diet Coke today. It's been that kind of day.
Oh yeah, there are those days. And I was kind of expecting like Lisa said, we were expecting it. I also have a Diet Coke with me today for this recording for that purpose. So
Yeah,
we are
thank
Diet Coke
you.
girlies.
In honor of me. I appreciate
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, of course.
And I am the outlier. I have a homemade iced vanilla latte, but I don't know. Your Diet Cokes look really good. We're no strangers to Diet Cokes over here.
Yeah. Mine is
Love
nice
Diet
and
Coke.
crispy. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. One quick rapid fire question, because I am interested to see what we all think in terms of Diet Coke and in terms of beverages. What is the ideal version of a Diet Coke? Is it from a can? Is it from a bottle? What are we thinking?
Okay, well, fountain drink is by far the best. 100%. But honestly, I know this is controversial, but my second choice is from a bottle. A lot of people go can on that, but
I'm a can girl.
Yeah, I really like the extra carbonation of a bottle.
It stays fresh for longer, a lot
It
longer.
does. It does. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aligned with you on that. Fountain drink is like far above all the other options, but I will opt for a bottle because I'm a slow drinker.
It's a whole thing, guys.
Yeah, I'm a can girl. And ideally, the can has to. I keep saying, and Chelsea makes fun of me for this, I say it has to marinate in the fridge.
She means chill.
No.
I mean
yeah.
chill, but marinate. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
It has to be cold, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, if you guys can't tell already, we are big Diet Coke people here. But I guess I will reel us back in because we could talk about it for a while. And we're going to start by talking kind of about the balancing act. And there's a couple of different facets that we see this in, especially with family dynamics and planning. So we're going to ask you a couple of questions and get your feedback there.
So the first question that we have for you, Lisa, is how would you describe the difference between being helpful in the wedding planning process and being overbearing? So like, how did you kind of navigate that line?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest advice I could give someone is just to remember that you are a character in the story, but you are not the main character of the story. And you really want to honor the couple and what their journey has been like together and allow them to make as many decisions as possible that feel really right to them. This is their day. It's not a day they'll ever get back. And so you want them to feel really invested in what the experience is like for them. So not that you can't have opinions. And what I really tried to do was offer suggestions or options. And then when it came to kind of a final decision, as long as it was within the budget that we had talked about, really that was their choice. And I really felt that that gave my daughter and I a real connection during the process without a lot of tension.
And I also feel like you kind of just mentioned budget. And I know that's a big consideration in this balancing act of like, okay, it's a big part of the topic of conversation between parents and children. And how did you guys choose to navigate that? Because, yeah, I feel like that can be a tough part.
Yeah, I think my daughter was young, and so it was no surprise that we were going to be shouldering most of the costs of the wedding. But I think no matter what your situation is like, the most important thing that you can do is have a conversation very early in the process, immediately after engagement. I mean, not like the hour after engagement, let's celebrate, but within the first week, before you really start digging into any planning at all. You want to sit down and you want a big non-negotiable here is that you want to include anyone that is going to be contributing financially in that conversation. So if you have a grandparent that's contributing or parents at all or both sides of the couple's parents are contributing, then you want everybody who's a stakeholder to really come together and set expectations and know what the real number is and go into that conversation realistic. Do some research, know about what people spend on the different categories, know what categories there are to spend on. Things have changed potentially if you're a parent since you were married, or you just might not be aware of what goes into planning. And so do some education. Here Comes the Guide has some great resources on typical distribution of budget and what the different categories are. And those are just guidelines. It will really vary based on what you guys are planning, what kind of event, But again, it all comes back to have a conversation up front, set realistic expectations, vocalize anything that you are concerned about, get on the same page right at the beginning. That, is a non-negotiable.
Yeah, that's such perfect advice. We preach that as well. We have our earliest episodes are about budgeting and how laying that out and having that super clear conversation is really important from the beginning and making sure that everyone's on the same page. It can be awkward talking about money, but it doesn't have to be if you just lay it out and be realistic and figure out what you want.
You gotta go all in. Right? You got to go all into that conversation. You got to just embrace the awkwardness. Another thing I will recommend is that you don't do this in a busy restaurant. Do it in a private setting of a home or apartment or, even a walk in the park. Do it somewhere where you can really be comfortable talking and sharing. And sometimes, honestly, walking because you're not staring at each other is a very comfortable setting for people. Whatever works for you guys, make sure that everyone is really allowed to be vulnerable or to say the things that they are worried are going to upset somebody, and go into it knowing that you're going to hold things loosely. You're going to allow people to have whatever opinions they have. Not everybody has to agree that night, but at least you're aware of where the tensions might be and you can try and solve those really proactively.
Yeah, it sounds like you laid a really great foundation for having open communication through the planning process. But during that process, did you guys have any tough family dynamics at all that you encountered?
We had a few things that we needed to kind of work around in terms of guest list, and then also kids, no kids, kind of how we were going to broach that. And first of all, I will say no decision is worth creating a major rift in your family. You have to take a step back and say what's really important here. And if it's really important to one of the stakeholders to have a third cousin, is that a make or break for you? Probably not. Just be realistic. But also, if you're on the other side kind of making these requests, also know what that third cousin means. It's not just a meal. It could be another tablecloth, another centerpiece, depending on how what your family size is. So it's not, you shouldn't be flippant with a request. You've got to really understand what that request looks like fully for the budget. But go into it, hold things loosely, and then the other thing is just set clear expectations right out the gate. I feel like I sound like a broken record, but foresee what the problems could be and set expectations. And if you can, try and problem solve what that expectation will mean. For instance, if you're not having kids at the wedding and you have family members with young kids and they're coming from out of town, you need to make a plan or suggestions for childcare, so that they're not, they don't know anyone in that area, so that they feel safe with where their kids are going to be during the wedding if they have to bring them to the destination with them, right? So just know what the potential issues are going to be and try and problem solve a little bit ahead of time. That will feel really respectful to them, and you'll have a better chance of not creating drama. Right? We want to try and create the least amount of drama as possible.
And I feel like that even kind of leads into, we're starting to creep into some of the topics of, okay, on the wedding day, what's going to be most important, that perspective. And that kind of leads me to a question that I think I've seen done really well, and I've also seen done not very well. And it's a really delicate balance of how do you enjoy the day? Obviously, the wedding day is also really big for you. But then you also probably have all of these things in the back of your head of like, I know when this is supposed to happen and what's supposed to happen. And so how did you navigate that balance between enjoying the day, but then also knowing there's a lot going on?
So I'm going to be very bold and say, whatever your budget is, figure out how to have a day of coordinator at minimum. That person needs to be able to make decisions on your behalf if you want any chance of just relaxing and enjoying and experiencing the day as a parent. You don't want to be involved in, hey, it's windy and this flower arrangement can't stand here. Can we move it to this other place? You know what? Let them be professionals. Figure it out and let the coordinator help guide those decisions without them having to come through you. It is going to create way less stress. If you can manage it in your budget, a month of coordinator or even a full planner is worth its weight in gold, literally. They do this all the time and they will guide you. Also making sure that that person who's going to be involved is somebody that you feel really comfortable with, because the reality is you're going to spend a lot of time with them. If you have a planner or coordinator leading up to the wedding, you're going to be interacting with them a lot. And then a day of planner will be a big part of you and your child's day. So make sure it's somebody that you're comfortable with, that you really vibe with. And am I allowed to say vibe? I'm not 20, but I'm going to say vibe. So
You can.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate the permission. So yeah, I just, really make sure that that person is a good fit for y'all.
Yeah. And I think this is something that actually we talked about in the episode of Weekend Weddings, where you gave us a lot of these pro tips. You guys had both, right? Both a coordinator and a planner?
Yeah, so we did, which is a luxury. Our venue, the venue coordinators are also day of coordinators. And we had a weekend wedding, so I wanted them to be involved in the flow of the entire weekend. So we did hire them. They mainly did events outside the day of. So our welcome event, and we did our rehearsal dinner on site. So they mainly did that, but they were also around on the wedding day if we needed them. And then we had our planner who really executed with us to bring our vision to life all the way along. And she and her assistant were really the main people on the day of. She coordinated all the vendors. She reached out to them ahead of time, made sure everyone was going to be on time, knew what the timeline was. We didn't have to do any of that the week of the wedding, and it was a gift because we were busy enough. We, needed to meet family and just wanted to enjoy our time. So that was really great.
Yeah. I have seen a couple weddings where I've seen parents, aunts, uncles just jump into things, and it always makes me a little bit sad because I'm like, you should be enjoying this day. So we have talked about it in many episodes. We're big fans of coordinators, planners. Hear us loud and clear when we say that. We're big fans.
Yeah. And you can usually find somebody that will fit within your budget as long as you're realistic about what their role is going to be. So day of coordinators are so great, and it doesn't have to break the bank.
That was all really great advice. Before we go, we did want to just ask you a couple questions about pro tips that you might have for us. So the first one, will you share some practical tips for parents about navigating wedding planning?
Yeah. Okay, so these are going to get super practical. You said practical. I went all in on the practical. One thing that will ease your stress the day of the wedding is to have a bin put together of all of those detail shots your photographer is going to want to take in like that flat lay format. So a guest book, the special cologne or perfume if your bride and groom are having one, the bride's shoes, a copy of the invitation, any special jewelry that's going to be worn, vow books if they have them. Put all of those in a bin. And then when your photographer arrives, because they won't be there the whole day, when they show up, you can just hand them that bin. They can do what they need, and they can give it all back to you, and it's all contained. Huge pro tip. The week before the event, sit with the couple and talk out the entire event start to finish. Really go through those nitty gritty details. We did this and we were like, who's taking your luggage to where you're spending the night? And we all kind of looked at each other, I don't know. And so we were able to get a groomsman to do that. So, really thinking through the logistics of what's going to happen during the event, before, during, and after will be really, really useful, and you'll avoid some last minute stress. Okay, hire a planner. We've talked about that. Trust them to make decisions on the day of the event. We've done that. So make sure you eat and hydrate the day of the wedding, and make sure you have food available for your entire wedding party. It is a long day, longer than you probably realize going into it. Hair and makeup sometimes can start for the women at 8 a.m. And so you need to have sustenance, and especially if we're having mimosas or beer or whatever, you need to make sure people have food on their stomach. So this can be a great thing to source out to a really, really good friend or a sister or brother, to help you with those things and coordinating that so you're not dealing with it. And then the last one, if you're going to drink alcohol at the rehearsal dinner, be super mindful. The last thing you want to do is nurse a hangover or a headache on the wedding day. So you ain't got time for that. Be mindful the night before.
That's all so good. Yeah, especially, I'm sure that your photographer, videographer, whoever loves you for that box that you put together. I'm sure that they're used to being like, do you have that stuff? Can you get it together? Waiting around. So I'm sure they love that. And I really love your tip about sitting down and going through like every minute of the day. That's so smart. And making sure, let's assign a groomsman to this. Let's make sure that he actually knows what that means. Like he knows where he's going. Yeah, really, really smart.
Get the details to everybody that's going to play a role early. And then, not getting texts like, wait, where are they staying overnight? Wait,
oh my
how
gosh,
do I get there? Be like, here's the address, deal with it. You will be so happy that you made an effort ahead of time.
Any way that you can probably avoid any texts that you're getting on the day of the wedding is great. Anything that you can do to lessen that.
And since we offloaded that, my husband and I, where we were was on the lake, I mentioned that, and we were able to take our coffees down, and our daughter had written us a letter, and we were able to take our coffees down to a dock and sit for like 45 minutes and read the letter she wrote us and really talk about the process of her getting married and what that's going to look like afterwards and how excited we were. And we got to really have a moment to share and bond about what we're about to experience and remind each other to take a deep breath and enjoy the day. And so it was really great because we were prepared and weren't getting those last minute, feverish texts.
That's so sweet. And that's why we love planning, because it allows for those really great moments to actually be able to happen. One more question that I have for you. Do you have any specific do's or don'ts that you could share with us?
I would say, along this thing, don't wing it. Really go through, and also don't get so tied up in all of the extras that people may feel pressure adding into your budget. So you don't need wedding favors unless you have something that you have your heart set on and you've been dreaming of forever. Know what your important things are. I was going to say this earlier, so I'm going to put it in now. Here Comes the Guide has a resource kind of what you should think through even before you start planning. And one of the questions is, what are the top 3 things that are important to you? And we suggest that both people in the couple fill that out ahead of time and talk through it, because you can make a lot of budgeting decisions based on what's important. So if, example, live music is super, super important to one of you, but maybe the video, booth, the photo booth isn't, well, you can go ahead and spend more on a band and not have that extra photo booth or whatever else you were going to spend. And you can come back to that and remind each other, okay, here's our budget. this was really important, so it's okay to spend more, and this other thing we're going to have to spend less on because we didn't put it in our top 3. So as a parent, allowing the couple to do that and then helping reference back to that as you're going through the process will help you make decisions when financial implications of different decisions can be big, right?
Yeah, we always talk about those non-negotiables. What are those things that you want to see at your wedding, that you are like holding near and dear? And we do talk about that in some of our other episodes. And like Lisa said, in a lot of our materials at Here Comes the Guide, we're going to be talking about that because you want to budget towards that and you want to make sure that happens. But really, I feel like a lot of what we're talking about today has boiled down to good communication. Really like setting that perspective, making sure that yes, you are a character, you are not the main character. And also just really enjoying what a momentous time this is for everybody involved. I love that you got to have that moment with your husband to celebrate your daughter and that new son-in-law. Like, just what an incredible occasion weddings really are, and bringing families together. So communicate, keep that perspective, and really enjoy things. I think I'm kind of summarizing that. So if you are listening to this and want to send it to a parent, I think this is a great episode to send it to your parent. Maybe you guys can start a conversation here. Or if you're a parent listening to this, hey, thank you so much for listening. But I do think across the board with any decision maker, anybody who's a stakeholder, those 3 things still really apply.
Absolutely. And, having a son or daughter get married is such a wonderful experience as a parent. It is so fun to see them step into this next stage of their life. There's so many moments that you will look back on and wish you could relive. And so really be intentional in that moment. I wish I could go back 1,000 times and relive when I was getting my daughter dressed, and she had some heirloom jewelry from her late grandmother, and I had some of her great grandmother and her late grandmother, and I had some of that jewelry too, and we talked about how proud of her they would be, and all of those things, and it was just so special. I was so happy. I wish I could do that all over again.
I'm getting teary-eyed from that. That is so special. I feel like those are the types of moments that you really want to enjoy. So, and
I have another daughter, so I'm going to get to relive it again with her. So
perfect.
Lucky me.
Okay, Lisa, this was an amazing episode. I knew this was going to be top tier from the moment we kind of started conceptualizing what this would sound like with all of us together. But if you want to hear more of Lisa's amazing tips and tricks, especially if you're planning a weekend wedding, episode 5 of the Guide Gals podcast, we talk all about those things, and you can hear more of some of those nitty-gritty details of how to really pull that off, some more tips and tricks from their experience. So it's a great episode. We're a little bit biased, obviously, but we think you should give it a listen. But this one was really great, so thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, it was a blast.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you for being here. It was really fun. So exciting. Of course, we know you outside of this podcast, but getting to have you here was really special. So thank you. But if you want to hear anything else on this topic, please let us know if you have any questions on it, or if you have any episode suggestions for us. You can reach out to us on our website, theguidegalspodcast.com. On here, you can also find lots of free resources and our full episode library. You can also find us on Instagram at The Guide Gals Podcast, and we're on TikTok at The Guide Gals Pod. You can also see all of our episodes in a video component on the Here Comes the Guide YouTube channel. But yeah, that's where you can find us. Reach out to us. We love to chat with you guys and hear from you. But this was super fun. Until next time, cheers.
Until next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.